Videocards.com is at it again with leaked info. This time it looks like they have RX 7600 and RX 4060 Ti scores from 3D Mark. So 3D Mark is going to be giving us synthetic scores, so this isn't actually direct gaming numbers. However, they did request TimeSpy, TimeSpy Extreme, and Speedway scores, along with Firestrike, Firestrike Extreme, and Firestrike Ultra scores. And again, requested the scores for the 4060 Ti, the 7600, and they said that they have requested these scores from multiple reviewers and then averaged the results. What do they have them up against? Well, 3060 Ti, 3060, 6650 XT, 6600 XT, and 6600. So the TimeSpy results are a DX12 test. And it goes from 1440p to 4K when you jump up to the extreme version. Speedway is DX12 and is more of a ray tracing test. And then the Firestrike scores are ranging from 1080p to 1440p to 4K in DX11. Now, historically, AMD GPUs have performed better in Firestrike relative to NVIDIA than they do in the TimeSpy testing. And of course, we know that AMD isn't up there in ray tracing performance the same way it is in rasterized performance. So it looks like NVIDIA has this first chart sorted in order by the Speedway result and putting the 4060 Ti as 100%. You can now see everything else as a percentage of that. So for example, they're showing that the RTX 3060 Ti is reaching 93% of the Speedway performance of the 4060 Ti. The 3060 Ti is reaching 91% of the performance in TimeSpy Extreme and 88% of its performance in TimeSpy. Now, a couple of things I'm noticing here. One of them is, again, look at the difference between resolutions, right? Going from TimeSpy to TimeSpy Extreme, which is 1440p to 4K, you can see that the 3060 Ti is, so let me put it this way. The 4060 Ti pulls further ahead at the lower resolution. And I was curious if that would continue in the DX11 testing, which again ranges from 1080p to 1440p to 4K. So here you can see that at 4K, the 3060 Ti reaches 98% of the performance of the 4060 Ti, giving the newer generation card only a 2% difference in performance there. And but again, dropping down to 1440p, we see a 91% of the performance of the 4060 Ti. And at 1080p, 88% of the performance of the 4060 Ti. Now, why is this relevant? Well, in NVIDIA's marketing materials, which I've did my last video on, NVIDIA claimed a 15% better performance relative to the 3060 Ti when not using DLSS 3 frame generation. Well, there's a couple of things to think about here. First of all, NVIDIA is giving a claim based on how much faster, how many times faster the 4060 Ti is, and these results are posted the other way, and that can sometimes be a little bit confusing for people. So let me actually pop out a calculator over here off on the side of the screen just to demonstrate something. So, for example, is the 4060 Ti 12% faster if the 3060 Ti reaches 88% of its performance? That's going to be something that we should check in on here. So if I take the results, so 33,596 divide by 29,504, notice that what we actually see is what would be rounded up if you round up to to two-digit percentage. This would be 1.14 times faster, or 14% faster, which is actually extremely close to the 15% or 1.15 times the performance that NVIDIA claimed at 1080p. However, NVIDIA did not give any claims for 1440p or 4K. So that's where the result closes even a little bit more. And I know some of you guys, everybody gets confused by this. Wait, if it's a 12% difference this way, how is it 14% difference that way? Because you're talking about a percent of different things. If you're talking about the 1.14 times faster, you're talking about 14% of the performance of the 3060 Ti. Whereas if you're talking about it the way we're looking at it here, we're talking about 12% of the performance of the 4060 Ti. So you're setting a different thing that you're talking about the percent of. So that's why those numbers don't match up perfectly. But anyway, the point is, it's looking like that 15% performance difference, at least from these numbers, or performance advantage, probably shrinks at higher resolutions. And overall, this is looking like maybe not a massive generational jump here for the 4060 Ti versus the 3060 Ti. But then we get some other interesting numbers here, like the RX 7600. So where are we at with the RX 7600? Well, it's looking like in Time Spy, we're reaching 80% of the performance of the 4060 Ti. At Time Spy Extreme, 81% of the performance, and then in Speedway, which like I said is a ray tracing test, only reaching 61% of the performance of the 4060 Ti, putting it a little bit behind the RTX 3060's ray tracing performance and ahead of the 6650 XTs. Now, in general, I think this comparison to the 6650 XT is very interesting. Now again, if this is 80% of that, of the 4060 Ti, and this is 75% of the 4060 Ti, that does not necessarily mean that the 7600 is 5% faster than the 6650 XT, comparing them directly. So what would make more sense is to divide these, although given these numbers, I think it will come out fairly close to that result. But so dividing here, 10010, we are seeing closer to a 7% if you rounded this up. In other words, like a 1.07 times faster than the 6650 XT using this Time Spy result. Now, if we jump down to Firestrike, we can go, let's see, 30925 divided by 29546. And this time we're seeing actually closer to that 5%, or 1.05 times faster. So in other words, the RX 7600 here is looking dangerously close to the performance of the 6650 XT, which is fine depending on pricing. Because here's where we get into a little bit of a problem. So if we look at the PC part pickers, this is Buying Cards New, surveyed at a lot of major retailers. If we look up the RX 6650 XT, the RX 6650 XT can be found as low as $249.99. So my question is, what is the RX 7600 going to cost? Because, I mean, if it costs much more than $250, it's pretty disappointing in the current market. But the the RX 6600, the predecessor, had an MSRP of, I think it was $320 or $330. I was right around there, which was during the whole crypto thing. So, AMD, of course, thought they could get away with that, and I think they did for a while during the crypto thing. But if they follow the previous generation's MSRPs and launch anywhere near that, I think this card is just a huge disappointment and dead on arrival. So we're going to have to see how that goes. Because also we have the RX 6700 non-XT available at $270, and this is a 10 gigabyte VRAM card, whereas the RX 7600, the leaked specs that we have here, so this is another videocards.com article, so they have the reference card pictured, say it's shorter than 21 centimeters, give us some pictures of that. I mean, looks to be pretty much just following the reference design language of the rest of the series that we've seen here so far. And if you go ahead and take a look, we are seeing the specs here. So the 7600 appears to be coming in with the a PCIe Gen 4x8 interface. Again, I think the 6700. Well, anyway, the point is the rumored release date here is the 25th. Here's the specs. It's still just 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Whereas again, in the current market, you can get a 6700 with 2 more gigabytes of VRAM, and 8 gigabytes of VRAM has shown to be a limitation in some games currently. But I guess what I'm looking at here is, I mean, look at it compared to the 6650 XT, right? I mean, there really does not appear to be a lot distinguishing these two cards. So again, I think price is going to be everything. Now, the 6650 XT had an MSRP of $400, so it's not going to be hard for AMD to come in here and say, MSRP to MSRP, they're probably going to launch the 7600 at a much better deal. But when you look at the current market and what's available, I mean, a 6700 XT is available at $320 brand new right now, and that's a 12 gigabyte card, which is significantly faster than a 6650 XT. And again, it's looking like the 7600 isn't. So anyway, I'm just saying, depending on the price this comes in at, it's going to be an extremely hard sell. Because again, AMD 7000 series isn't really coming in with any new features or anything like that. So the only real thing it has to offer consumers is price to performance improvements. So I'm really hoping that it does. Now, with NVIDIA's cards and how disappointed we should be in them, I think it's, again, looking like generationally an extremely small improvement. Let's see where the 3060 Ti's pricing is. I'm curious if it's fallen at all since this announcement. It's still holding in at $390 at the new pricing, and this is after we've had the announcement of the 4060 Ti. So it does look like we are going to get, with the 4060 Ti, a little bit of a price to performance jump, but just not an exciting one. I think a lot of people would be interested in 30 to 50% performance uplift at the same price. And again, these are just synthetic benchmarks, and it is just a leak, but what we're seeing here, according to videocards.com, looking at here, is that the 4060 Ti 8GB is on average 10% faster than the 3060 Ti. 10% faster than the 3060 Ti. Again, it'll have better energy efficiency. It'll have AV1 encoding. It'll have the frame generation feature is very interesting to single-player gamers, all of that. But again, so it is looking like there will be an improvement to price to performance and features, but just not an exciting one. This feels like if you have a 3060 Ti, this is an absolute skip generation. And these really seem like they'd only be interesting to people coming from multiple generations behind. But again, we'll need to get the full reviews out. Videocards.com is summarizing their data set here with the RX 7600 being 34% higher performance than the RX 6600. And okay, so if we compare it to its namesake predecessor of the 6600, 34% generational uplift. Again, I said, you'd like to see 30 to 50% upgrade to be excited about. Cool. Now, what does the RX 6600 cost right now? The RX 6600 costs $199. So if we want to pop into the calculator one last time, maybe. So let's see. So the 199, or let's just call it 200. So if we go 200 times, what did this summarize it as? A 34% performance uplift. So if we go times 1.34, so if this comes in at about $270, it's offering no improvement to price to performance from the 6600, at least in the current market. And again, it would cost, let's see, it would cost about the same as an RX 6700, which has 2 gigabytes of more VRAM. Anyway, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what happens, won't we? All right. Let's see. Last few little bits of news here while I was at videocards.com looking for this info is that the let's see, the RTX 4060, which we got a price of $299 for in US, looks to be 329 euros in Europe. So if you were looking for the European pricing on the 4060, there it is. And just to be clear, NVIDIA has confirmed there will be no Founders Edition cards for the 4060 or the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. Now, the 16 gigabyte version of the 4060 Ti is going to cost $100 more. So that's going to put it in a really awkward place where at $100 more, that puts it up to $500. And now you have cards like the RX 6800 and 6800 XT, which are both already 16 gigabyte cards. And these offer significantly more performance than we're going to be getting, like if we're talking pure rasterized performance, than we're getting from the 4060 Ti. And the 16 gigabyte 4060 Ti is not going to have any performance uplift other than just having more VRAM, so it'll perform better when it's than the 8 gigabyte version when the 8 gigabyte version would pass a VRAM, use more than what's in its VRAM buffer. But again, the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte is going to be a hard sell if there's still 6800 XTs costing the same price. Anyway, so overall, my thoughts here are that I don't know. We need to get the full reviews out, and we need to see what the RX 7600 costs. And just overall, man, this really feels like a bit of a skip generation for anybody who bought last gen. From the numbers that we're seeing here, what do you guys think in the comment section? And I do hope that you still all have an excellent day, because there is more to life than getting a massive generational uplift in price to performance. You can still have a good day. So have an excellent day.